Hello, everyone. We are going to get started probably in about 2 minutes. We're just going to let a bunch of people come in because we are expecting a big audience. But while you're waiting, if you can actually put in the chat window where you're calling in from or joining from, that would be great. Okay, I think I will kick off. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining. So welcome to today's event on Lifting Others Up. It is being hosted by the Women in Leadership Alberta chapter, and we have over 89 participants that have registered for today's events that span the globe. So that's pretty amazing. So my name is Penny Islakar. I live in Calgary, Alberta, and I am one of the leads in the Alberta chapter. Before I share with you about the Women in Leadership Foundation, I want to take a moment to, again, ask you to, if you just are joining, to tell us where you are joining from. So if you can enter it in the chat window, that would be great. And we want to know if you've ever attended a WIL event before. So if you feel like adding that to the chat window as well, that would be awesome. The Women in Leadership Foundation is a national non-for-profit organization started about 20 years ago by Maya Canagan, our founder. It resulted in our first chapter in Vancouver, subsequently followed by chapters in Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, Kelowna, Victoria, Vancouver, the Northwest Territories, Alberta, and Saskatchewan. Women in Leadership Foundation is not just about the advancement of women, but empowering individuals to reach their goals and their potential by scaling new heights in their personal and professional development and exploring the impossible together as a community. 2022, like 2021, continues to be a year of transformation, not just for us, but many others in the ongoing pandemic and our current landscape. Our efforts will be geared towards workshops focused on lifting others up, broadening the reach of our chapter province-wide, and expanding opportunities for women all over the province of Alberta, and as you can see, across the globe. The Women in Leadership Foundation is about breaking down the barriers and changing not just your life, but the lives of others as well. And we believe that together we alter the dynamic. So just a few housekeeping, we will be recording this session. If you do have any questions as we are going through and the panelists are speaking, please put it into the Q&A and we will ask the presenters at the end of each of their presentations to be able to answer them. But before we kick off, I want to do a treaty land acknowledgement. So we acknowledge that we live and work on traditional territories of the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit in Alberta, and in particular, the Treaty 6 and Treaty 7 territories. And we express gratitude and respect for the land we use and those footsteps that have marked these lands for centuries. So I'm going to now turn it over to Kaylee to walk us through a mindful breathing exercise, and we'll introduce our first speaker. Over to you, Kaylee. So Heather, do you know if Kaylee has been able to join in as a speaker? Oh, it looks like she doesn't have the ability. So we'll just give 1 second for some technical adjustments and see if we can get her to come on. just give her a second to make sure. Oh, and here she is. So thank you. It was a little pause before our mindful moment.
Hey, everyone. The view is, I can't see myself, I guess. So anyway, no worries. So yeah, let's just settle in. I thought since today we're diving into the topic of lifting others up, that we would start by lifting ourselves up. So please just make sure you're seated comfortably and you can close down your eyes. And just feel yourself settle into your seat and relax into that support. And next, start to breathe in and out through your nose. You can notice the inhale of your breath, what the texture is of it, the temperature, where it's moving in your body and where it's filling your body. And when you're exhaling, is it longer? Is it shorter than your inhale? Does it flow out of you smoothly? And maybe you feel yourself relax and let go a little bit more as you release your breath. So if you haven't done a mindfulness practice before, you do use an anchor for your attention. So as you're breathing, you can choose to anchor into your breath, following it and resting your awareness where you feel it in your body or your nose, your chest, your belly. Your anchor can also be a sensation such as feeling the seat beneath you or even your heart beating. So just choose an anchor that feels best for you, whether it's your breath or a sensation in your body. And whenever your intention starts to wander off, just bring your attention back to your anchor place. Good. So now let's softly drop in a statement that would feel really supportive and uplifting for you to hear, and try to make it believable. So something that you would really love to hear right now that would be comforting and have a comforting effect on your body. So it could be, it's okay, or I'm here for you, or you're doing a good job. So just gently say the words that you need to hear softly inside of your head, kind of as if you're saying them to your dearest friend. And then come back to meditate on your anchor place. And every once in a while, you can drop in your support phrase. Good. So you can continue just sitting here with your anchor, and just want to remind you that it really does matter how you speak to yourself, and it can shift how you feel in the moment. And also with time, it can change by rewiring neural pathways in your brain so that you start feeling more loving towards yourself instead of being hard or critical on yourself. So whenever you're ready, you can slowly open your eyes and just feel for a moment how sitting with yourself in that caring way felt for you. Thank you, Penny.
Perfect. Thank you. So just a reminder, we will be recording this. I have put in that we will be doing a survey at the end. If you have any questions, please definitely put them into the Q&A. And if there isn't anything else, then we are going to flip to our first speaker. Okay. Oh, Jody, I think you're on mute.
Hi, I'm introducing Vicki Nielsen. Vicki's a fresh, or actually I'll just start with, I met Vicki last fall and I did some work for her, and every chat that I had with her, I just felt like I learned something, I was inspired, and I'm just really excited to hear her talk today. Here's my introduction for her. Vicki is a breath of fresh air to the business world. She has 25 years experience in business and finance, currently working as a fractional CFO for her own company, Wayfinder Financial Solutions. With her knowledge of the inner workings of large companies, her love of community, and respect for the environment, she offers refreshing insights on the path to sustainable wealth for businesses in 2022. At home, she lives off the grid, surrounding her family and nature. At work, she asks the CEOs of major corporations the sadly uncommon question of what is enough? She lifts up others daily in her work by including them in the bigger picture when giving financial advice to businesses. To me, her ideas are honest, intelligent, and from the heart, and I'm excited to hear her speak today. If you have any questions for Vicki, please add them to the Q&A box and she'll answer them after her presentation. Vicki Nielsen.
Thank you, Jody. All right, technology's working. Thank you. Thank you for that lovely introduction, Jody, and thank you for letting me speak. I think this topic is critical right now for business and for society. I'm going to share my view that to lift others up, we don't have to do much more than paying them a living wage, because folks are already trying to lift themselves up. They just need a little bit of help from us. So I'm going to talk about the virtuous cycle. This is so named by Dick Spady. He is the founder of Dick's Drive-In in Seattle, Washington. This is the approach that he applies in his business, and we'll hear a little bit more about it later. Step one is pay people higher wages. People need to have their basic needs met before they can focus on great things like achieving their potential. Once their basic needs are met, they bring all of that talent and creativity and energy that might be spent on figuring out where rent is coming from. Suddenly they're focused on business problems, making sure that the business is creating value that wasn't there before. Once that value is created, there's more to spread to the other stakeholders in every business. There's more for customers and for suppliers and for the community that the business exists in and for its environment. When we have this virtuous cycle going of more wealth for all, we can lower some of the very real social and financial costs of poverty that some workers unfortunately are experiencing right now and that we're subsidizing with our taxes. Lower taxes and lower costs of poverty lead to strong and sustainable and thriving businesses. So the cycle continues, and this can be incremental change throughout the life of a business. So this sounds like a great thing. And we're going to go through the business case. We're going to go through the how and the why and the risks of doing nothing. So why isn't everybody doing it? And I think one of the things that I know I can forget, I've been a business leader for a very long time. And sometimes business can be a bit ugly, honestly. There's a lot of fear and scarcity. It's a big challenge to run a business. And I think I remind myself all the time, and I invite you all to do the same, that we're all one and nature has it figured out. We can't have one species or one individual thrive in an ecosystem if we expect it to sustain itself. So nature knows that for one to thrive, all need to thrive. If only one is thriving, it's not going to happen for long. So business is the same. So keep that in mind as we go through what might seem too good to be true. First, we'll talk about some reality though. So basic needs have to come first. I'm sure everyone is familiar. This is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And we talk a lot about how basic needs have to be met before we can all achieve our potential. This is a group of leaders, and I know that I get to spend a lot of time in self-actualization. I get to come up with ideas and make changes and get excited about initiatives at work. And sometimes I find that I'm the only one that's excited. So it's important that I ground myself in, hey, what if all of my team is focused on their basic needs? So some people say if you want to meet your basic needs and make more money, just work harder. And we're going to see shortly that just working harder, for one thing, one of our basic needs is rest, but just working harder at minimum wage may not actually allow us to meet our basic needs. So living wage, this is the Alberta Living Wage Network. So I'd invite all of you to have a look at this website. It's fantastic. This is a non-for-profit society that defines an acceptable lifestyle for an Albertan, and they figure out how much it costs to actually do that in a bunch of different cities. So I focused on Edmonton, of course. Alberta Living Wage Network also certifies employers. So if you're all wondering where to send your hard-earned income, there are employers all over Alberta who all employees earn at least a living wage. So I'd encourage you to check it out. But the living wage, so you can see this is a little family of 4 here, and they're standing in front of a house. So that house is a 3-bedroom rental home. They don't own their own home, but they can't afford to rent one. Transportation, that's an 8-year-old compact car with fuel or transit passes in a major city. For childcare, it gets a little tricky. This is 2 children. One is in preschool and one is in out of school care. So for folks that have twins in preschool or 2 sets of twins in preschool, heaven help you, it's going to be pretty hard to earn a living wage. Some of the other household costs they have in here, you'll see they've got some luxury items like a toothbrush and furniture and a phone. Pretty tough to get by without those things. They've identified tuition as one of the basic needs. So this is 1 course twice a year for 1 person through Athabasca University. So that puts 1 family member on track for a degree in 16 years. Healthcare, this is Alberta Blue Cross. It's a basic plan, so prescription coverage is pretty good. But I was looking through and I really hope this family is generally healthy and not in great need of paramedical services or dental services. Something that jumped out at me was the vision care. So you get $250 every 2 years, including eye exams. So I wear glasses, my 2 daughters wear glasses, and my older girl is very nearsighted, so her last pair of glasses cost me $1,000. So we're buying 1 or 2 pairs of glasses a year. And that's not covered on this. If folks are just barely making ends meet, that might be going on a credit card. And a $2,000 credit card balance at 18% interest is going to take you about 30 years to pay off on minimum payments. The food here, this is Canada's food guide. So thankfully, these folks aren't eating at McDonald's every day. Meat, vegetables, fruit, milk. And the clothing, they have great detail on the website, so check it out. But some of the examples where there's 1 pair of men's shorts replaced every 2 years. 6 pairs of girls' socks replaced annually. So I think this is a reasonable lifestyle for our little family of 4 here, but hopefully they're healthy physically and mentally, because it's a bit precarious. So the living wage is not the same as minimum wage in Alberta. So we all know that the minimum wage in Alberta is $15 an hour. Well, so there's a gap. The living wage in Edmonton for last year is $18.10 per hour. And the calculation is actually multiplied by 2,080 hours a year times 2 people for a $75,296 annual household income. The gap between $18.10 and $15 an hour actually translate to this almost $30,000 shortfall. So in order to meet the basic needs of this family, somebody is working an extra 16 hours a week at $15 an hour. And that's pretty tough to rest. So a couple other things I want to draw your attention to is 2,080 hours a year are hard to get. So that's 50 weeks a year working plus 2 weeks of paid vacation. And again, that's times 2 people. So in Canada, 17% of our households are actually single parent households. So with all of the vulnerabilities that we just talked about, you think we have some folks living in poverty? Unfortunately, we sure do. So this is the Canada Without Poverty website. Please check this one out too. I must say that it's a challenging read. This is a tough one to get through. Canada is ranked number 17 out of 29 wealthy countries because of the number of children that we have living in poverty. We're ranked 26 out of 35 for overall child inequality. There are 2 things that business can do something about directly on this slide. So precarious employment increasing by nearly 50%. This means it's really tough for folks to find a full-time job. Of course, businesses do this to save their own costs at a significant societal cost. Between 1980 and 2005, the average earnings among the least wealthy fell by 20%. Canada's GDP increased significantly, like 46% in the same period. So where did that money go? So who do we think is most impacted by poverty in Canada? Yeah, you guessed it. Disabled, children, women, Indigenous people, racialized women, and the elderly are bearing the brunt of this. The CWP website says that 1 in 10 Canadians can't afford to fill their prescriptions, even though we know that if we invest $1 now in children's healthcare, it can save up to $9 in future healthcare costs. Food insecure households are 80% more likely to report diabetes, 60% more likely to report high blood pressure, and 70% more likely to have food allergies. So it's estimated that the extra cost of those diseases directly linked to poverty cost our healthcare system an extra 20%. So I started to think, like, 20%, okay, what does that actually cost right here in Alberta? So I looked at the budget. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, but Alberta took in $43 billion in tax revenue last year. 26% of that came from us, came from you and I in personal income tax. Another 24% came from the feds, which of course came from you and I. A scanty 7% came from business. I was actually surprised by this. And you can see that none came from government-run businesses. So I found that kind of funny. The operating expenses, the government actually spent $60 billion, but the operating expenses were 47. 20 of that is in healthcare. Never mind things like social services, children's services, and justice that are impacted by poverty. So when we talk about 20% of healthcare spending, that's actually $4.1 billion. That is more than the total that we collect in corporate income tax. So when the choice is made by businesses to pay workers less than they can afford to live on, it is subsidized by all of us. So when the NDP was actually in power, they had a roundtable discussion between some not-for-profits and a bunch of local business owners. And I was working for a not-for-profit at that time. And I was invited to contribute my view on whether or not we should do that. So the discussion was very polarized, as you can imagine, and I don't know if any minds were changed. I think maybe people left further entrenched in the position they arrived with. The not-for-profits were saying you have no choice, you have to pay people at least $15 an hour, maybe more, and the businesses were saying we absolutely can't do it. And everybody's right. So what really struck me was the businesses said that if I have to pay my servers more, I'm going to have to charge $30 for a burger. I'm going to go out of business because no one's going to pay that. And then everyone loses their jobs. So who have you helped? And I was really struck by that because to me, there's more ideas than just the one, that if I have to give more to an employee, I must take it from a customer. How about we create some value that wasn't there before? So this is not a new concept, but this is my take on the concept of balancing the needs of all of our stakeholders. So when people come together and everyone is benefiting from this thriving business, it creates more for all of the stakeholders and gets them all engaged in solving the business problems. And I've been in these businesses that are doing it, and it's fun and it's exciting because folks show up wanting to do a good job at work. Some examples are, the environment stakeholder. You can save a ton of money in a warehousing or manufacturing facility by switching out for LED bulbs. It's good for everybody. Customers, sometimes you just give volume discounts to customers because they used to buy a lot in the past and they buy a little less each year, but you're not really watching it closely and they're a good guy anyway. So you keep giving them a low price when the volume doesn't actually support it. And it erodes your profitability. So just a handful of ideas. There's hundreds of ways to do this, but when everybody benefits, everybody's invested in the success of this business. So it sounds like nirvana, right? So what's the payoff? So again, it's easy. Gallup talked to over 112,000 businesses. And the bottom line is that businesses with highly engaged employees are 23% more profitable. What struck me though was the reason they're more profitable is because they eliminate all of this misery on the negative outcome side. So 81% decrease in absenteeism. This is folks with headaches that can't force themselves to get out of bed to go to work. This is theft, accidents, and death. When people are engaged, these things happen less. So what if we just put our heads in the sand and do nothing? I'm excited to see that the tide is actually shifting. Investors now are no longer investing in businesses that aren't talking about things like solid returns for shareholders and operating a sustainable business model that addresses the long-term goals of society. Investors expect us to do both. This climate risk is investment risk. This Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, it's one of the largest investment firms in North America. And this is part of why our energy industry is starving for investment now, is this comment. Aligning goals to long-term goals of society. The World Economic Forum is creating right now a stakeholder scorecard similar to the one that I showed you, much more comprehensive, of course, for public companies. So the tide has shifted in the minds of the investors. What are consumers saying? Same thing. So EY, one of the largest accounting firms in the world, surveys broad section 16,000 customers from more than 20 countries, asks them how they're feeling. So yes, 32% of those customers put affordability first, but that actually leaves 68% of consumers with other priorities other than affordability. So they're making recommendations by June to CEOs saying, embrace sustainability as a driver of value creation. It's not just something you have to do anymore. Take a holistic perspective. Sounds like balance. Be authentic and be prepared to prove it. That's the scorecard, because eventually someone's going to ask to see your scorecard, and I would hate to be surprised. I would like to have a scorecard that looks pretty good. Drive impact across the value chain. Again, it's about balance. So I liked this, redesign your operating model and build it fast, because yeah, it takes time. It might be a 10-year plan, so no time like the present. And just for a little bit of positive, some CEOs are actually doing this. I pulled a Stantec example because their head office is right here in Edmonton. Teresa Jiang is the chief financial officer over there, and they have committed, this SLL is their senior lending line. They voluntarily committed that their Bloomberg Gender Equity and Inclusion score will be maintained at an acceptable level, or they will pay more for their lending. So Teresa Jiang is an Asian woman and new to Stantec. The VP and treasurer who actually made this happen is a dear friend of mine, Christy Spurl, and she's another woman. And I really think that inclusion matters, because that's the kind of stuff that you see. Dan Price is a white male, so inclusion is not the only thing that matters. Voluntarily took a pay cut when he realized how tough it was for his folks to get by on less than 70 grand a year. So no one works for him unless they make 70 grand a year plus benefits. He had 25,400 applications for 72 jobs, and he created 72 new jobs because his business is thriving. And one of my favorites is Dick's Drive-In in Seattle. So this is Dick Spady that we've already mentioned. He's describing to his daughter, Jasmine, his philosophy on how to run a business. So of course it has to make a profit. The shareholder needs enough. But this business pays their employees a minimum wage of $19 an hour, some locations 20, plus scholarships, healthcare, childcare, paid vacation, 401k plans, and free meals for them and their families. And at Dick's, a basic burger costs $1.80. The most expensive thing on their menu is $4.25. So if Dick's can do it, there's a way to do it. I have never worked in a business where I haven't seen a way to get it done. It's hard and it can take a long time, but there's always a way to get it done. If I do encounter a business where I don't see a way, then I get to ask myself whether that business really needs to exist and whether I really need to buy products and services from a company that requires its employees to live below the poverty line. So transparency is coming, and I think businesses are best served to get ahead of it. So what can I do? I think that all of us as leaders have the privilege of being able to stand up for sustainability as part of our strategic planning this year. Find out how much money your folks make and ask for more, because guaranteed it's not enough. And don't take no for an answer. No is easy. Anyone on this call can lead a profit improvement initiative to cover any extra cost and make sure that commitment's there, that if you deliver on the extra profits, that it will go to your people who made it happen. And if you need any ideas, please call me, because I have a lot. So I think I'm at time, Jody. Do we want to do questions?
Yes, if anybody has any questions, add them to the Q&A. I did.
You're on mute.
All right, here I am. I saw one come in. Please, everyone else, add your questions to the Q&A, but one came in the chat while you were talking. If taxes were included in the numbers about living wage.
They are, yeah, all taxes, subsidies. That is an absolute real picture of Alberta. 75 grand a year, folks.
Yeah. Let's just see here. I'm not seeing any questions yet.
That's okay. So if anybody thinks of any questions, please reach out. My contact info is here. This is something I'm really passionate about, and happy to go on and on.
If I had one question, you said you had lots of ideas for how to raise money within, like for myself to help in an organization. Maybe you could share a couple of ideas.
Sure. One that I see fairly commonly is suppliers. You get some supplies that are not meeting the quality spec, and especially in manufacturing, everybody's in a hurry. So if you don't have a good process for returning that stuff, it's much easier for folks to just fix it and then pass it on. So they're not paying any less for the defective supply. They're not charging any more to the customer, but the business is losing money because they have a crummy process for returning quality defects. But you want folks to be engaged before they participate in those change initiatives. You only get so much credit with people. Eventually they do start to ask quite fairly, like, what's in it for me? Why wouldn't I just do the same job I do every day?
Great. Good answer. Let's see, I think that's it for questions. Thank you, Vicki. That was very fascinating.
I see one more question in there though.
In the Q&A, or did it come up in the chat?
In the chat.
Okay. Is this pre-tax? Okay, let's see here. Oh, where could we find info about the living wage in other provinces?
If you go through the Alberta Living Wage Network, they're connected to all the other provinces, and they work with a Canada-wide organization as well. So between them and the Canada Without Poverty website, it's you'll be able to find it. If you can't, just reach out and I'll send you a bunch of links.
Awesome. Okay, well, thanks, Vicki. I think I'm going to hand it back over to Heather or to Penny. No, Heather.
Yeah.
Heather,
and then if I can get Vicki to unshare, and then we'll I can share, and then we'll introduce our next speaker. Thank you so much, Vicki. That was so interesting. Now I've lost the slideshow. Okay, give me 2 seconds here. Just having doing a quick technical switch over here. So. Alrighty. Okay, so I'm really excited to introduce our next panelist for us today in our speaker series. And so we are really lucky to have with us today Candace M. Fox. And so she's from my old stomping grounds of Saskatchewan. So excited to really have her here. So she's born and raised in Saskatchewan, and most of her family roots are grounded in the plains of the Canadian prairies. While work and unique projects have kept her close to home, she has an appetite for self-discovery and adventure, and has found her gallivanting the globe to explore healing modalities, eco-communities, and holistic lifestyles that quench the soul and satisfy the mind and body. With a background in marketing from the Edwards School of Business at the University of Saskatchewan, Candace started her working career as an entrepreneur and a co-owner of a marketing and PR firm, Couture Business Development. From there, she's moved in the communications sector, working as a producer, writer for Global Regina, field producer for City Saskatchewan, and fashion editor, writer for Refined Lifestyle Saskatoon and Regina. And she is now splitting her time in the nonprofit sector in Saskatchewan and Alberta. And she is currently an outreach consultant for Achieve's Career Loans program in Saskatchewan and Alberta, supporting newcomers getting back into their preferred career path. And she's also studying energy psychology and somatic therapies, and has a small private practice supporting neurodivergent folks with self-regulation tools. So Candace, we are so excited to have you here, so welcome.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Heather. And yeah, I'm gonna bump you off of share screen here, take the powers away from you. And I'm gonna share my screen. All right, hopefully everyone can see that. Awesome. So thanks again, Heather. And also thank you to the Women in Leadership Foundation team for hosting such a great speaker series and inviting me to share. When Heather approached me and sort of gave me the theme for today, I wanted to choose a topic that would be relevant to all of the work I do, sort of all the hats that I wear, but also transcend the roles or the titles that I have and maybe you have as well. So, you know, whether I'm working with, you know, professional newcomers through Achieve's Career Loans program, or, you know, interviewing someone experiencing disability through the work I do at SAS Abilities, or if it's teaching neurodivergent folks self-regulation tools as a somatic therapy practitioner, the one constant is my absolute intention to show up authentically, to connect with the person in front of me on a human-to-human level. So what I'm going to share with you today are some essentials that I hope, you know, will help all of us sort of lift up others through connecting with individuals authentically, you know, in our work, in our personal lives, in our volunteer initiatives. Before I begin though, I want to just invite all of you to sort of map out a typical day in your life. So I want you to think about sort of the people you see maybe on a regular or semi-regular basis, but maybe don't know all that well. You know, this could be the cashier at the grocery store, the barista at your favorite coffee shop, you know, maybe a new employee who works in your office, but you haven't seen. It could even be a street person that you see when you drive your kids to hockey practice. So someone who's on the sort of outer peripheral of your life. So think about them, sort of categorize or come up with a number in your head, hold on to that, and then we'll come back to that. Okay. So the first is practice being present in your body. And I'm so happy that Kaylee moved us through that practice, because it is so important for us to have a deeper connection with ourselves if we expect to have a deeper connection with others. You know, having that opportunity, even within this environment, to check in with ourselves, to attune our energies with each other, that is such an important thing to do with ourselves every day, at work, at home. Many of us today respond to our world and the people in it from a place of, reactivity. We might even be on autopilot throughout the day. So being able to, connect with yourself, before a meeting or after a difficult client or after a difficult conversation, before you move onward to your next interaction is so important. We have heard that communication is 7% verbal and 93% nonverbal. What energy are you bringing consistently to your work? What energy are you bringing consistently to your clients or in your other relationships? In the work I do as a somatic therapy practitioner, we talk a lot about polyvagal theory, the nervous system, and self-regulation tools. And so it is absolutely important to just pause and check in, where is my nervous system at right now? How am I doing? So that you are ensuring that you're not dumping, maybe the bad day that you're having on someone else. Like I said, we truly cannot connect with others on a meaningful and impactful level if we're not having that relationship with ourselves first. Okay, the next is acknowledging the humanness in ourselves so we can acknowledge the humanness in others. No one is perfect. We all have stories, but it is important to see individuals for who they are outside of their, current circumstances, hardships, financial situation. It is sort of amazing to me that, there are 7.9 billion people on this planet, all having their very own unique experience at the same time as us. None of us are experts at being human and living in a pandemic. We are complex. People are complex. As Vicki just showed, we are living in complex systems. Whether we feel like we're thriving or just surviving in the present moment, we need to have compassion for ourselves and for others. Many people are carrying past traumas, programming, fears, hurts. And so, in this moment today and now, it is just so important to, put our political views, our religious beliefs, and our fears sort of aside and connect as individuals, have some compassion and patience for each other. And remember, we all deserve respect. We all deserve to feel love and to be loved. We all deserve to have our basic needs met. We are not going to be able to move forward as a community or a collective, if we don't put down our righteous attitudes and just try to understand each other. And I truly believe compassion is the antidote we all really need right now. The next is genuine curiosity. I'm going to invite you all to sort of recall a memory, or even if you can sort of cultivate that feeling you've had when someone was just so genuinely interested in, what you were saying, what you were doing, who you are, not like, what's your favorite color, what's your favorite food, but, genuinely interested in like the essence of who you are. I know for me, when someone is genuinely curious to get to know me and, they're asking me questions and they want to understand me, I feel so seen and heard and validated and like I matter. And, that feeling is sort of like a love buzz, that not a wine buzz, but a love buzz. And, there's honestly nothing better than that, right? Like there's just nothing better than that. I always love it when science backs up, what I have to say. Here we see a scientist, Dr. George Land and Dr. Beth Jarman, both hired by NASA, saying that genuine curiosity fosters better relationships with a deeper sense of intimacy and trust. We don't have to solve a person's problems. We don't even have to solve the world's problems to lift others up. You just have to make people feel like they matter and help them find the answers they are seeking within themselves. And you do this by asking curious questions. You do this by genuinely giving a damn about the person in front of you. When people know they have someone in their life that genuinely cares and is interested in supporting them, they show up differently. It's like they have a safety net, underneath them. You'll see people, taking risks, going for that promotion, putting themselves out there because they know no matter what, they have someone who's going to support them and who is going to help them find the answers within themselves. And, that's true empowerment, and we all deserve that. The next is to release the notion that you and others are either indispensable or replaceable. We aren't serving others or ourselves when we see the world through a lens of a hierarchical system, which very much goes hand in hand with both the traditional and modern patriarchy. When we are vying to get to the top, when we see others as, competition, we are less likely to make room for others at the top. And if we do, those individuals often think, they talk, they act, and they look like us. And there's that, safety in the familiar. I view the world, and people in it like it's a large puzzle. We all have something to contribute. We all have a set of unique abilities and talents that are to be shared for the benefit of all. This way, we are all honoring our uniqueness, but still we all belong. We all matter. Do we need a leader sometimes to, direct the ship? Sure, but authentic leadership isn't about being worshipped and keeping others down. We can't lift others up if we believe some people are replaceable and we are harming others, that we put on a pedestal because we know, perfection isn't a thing, it's not attainable and it's not sustainable. And that's really a recipe for disappointment. I wholeheartedly believe that collectivism isn't a threat to our individual success. We are humans, we need each other to survive and to thrive. And we all have a place and a purpose on this planet. And it's important to, celebrate that for ourselves and to celebrate that for others. That's what uplifting others is all about, celebrating and recognizing the gifts that others bring to the table. The next is being a person of integrity and truth in all circles and environments. I think we have probably, or at least I have, experienced in the past 2+ years that feeling of, perhaps shock or disappointment in someone not showing up the way that we thought that they should, or not being the person that we thought that they were. And maybe you are feeling some guilt because you didn't show up or have the capacity to show up in ways that you normally do. And that's okay. The past few years have been really, really heavy, and it's important to acknowledge that. Remember, back to that slide, acknowledging the humanness in ourselves so we can acknowledge that in others. And that is not what the focus of this slide is. This slide is more about integrity and motivation. It is the optics of being that sort of good person versus that intrinsic drive to be of service and to actually make a difference in the lives of others and the community. When we consistently show up for people and they know what to expect from us, we sort of establish this level of safety and trust. And it allows others to be vulnerable, to be authentic, and to show up, in a more profound way. Can you imagine sort of living in a world where everyone is just unapologetically themselves? Where kids at a young age in grade school are taught that being you is enough. You don't have to be the next TikTok sensation or Insta model, Kardashian, whatnot. You don't have to try to be anyone else but yourself. And, that's not only a world that I want to live in, but that's a world that I want to create. And so, the first part of that is, us ourselves showing up as those individuals. The next is address and call out white privilege, savior complex, faux feminism, and performative allyship. Connecting authentically with others also includes admitting when you feel like you have to, learn, or you have much to learn and unlearn around certain topics and social issues. I think for many of us who identify as, white settlers or people of privilege, we have a lot of catching up to do in understanding the experiences of those who do not look like us or share in the same experiences. And this is not about, saving people. We are our own saviors. This isn't even about relating. This is about listening and learning, admitting we've made mistakes, and trying our hardest to learn from those mistakes. Authentic connection means saying, I don't know what that feels like. I'm sorry you had that experience, and I wholeheartedly want to help you in whatever way I can moving forward. We all have blind spots, but it is our responsibility as adults to invest in taking the blinders off, especially those of us who work with underserved populations, Black, Indigenous, people of color, LGBTQ2S+, and people with seen or unseen disabilities. I also think it's a great idea for, every organization and any company to include trauma-informed training for their staff. That's just, it's something that, we all need in our personal and professional lives. And this is really about educating ourselves, seeking out opportunities to learn from others who do not look like us or who have had the same experiences as us, challenging ourselves, being honest about our intentions, saying like, I'm here to learn and I don't even know what I don't know yet, and that being okay. Because I think, at the end of the day, we can all sort of agree that ignorance is certainly not bliss. Okay, so I want to loop back here, and while I'm on this slide, I want you just to think about those people that you thought of who were sort of on the peripheral, on the outer edge of your world. Because I believe that there is no one in our life who is there by mistake or coincidence. I assume everyone who crosses my path has a gift or a lesson to teach me about life, maybe a situation or a circumstance I'm in, or just something about me. And I believe the same, when I cross a person's path, I believe I'm there to support them in some way. And when you think about that, you really do show up differently in people's lives. We absolutely have an influence far greater than we all know or realize. You absolutely don't know when, making eye contact with someone, smiling at someone, or just simply saying, hello, how is your day? You don't know how much that might mean to someone or how that might change the trajectory of their day, month, year, their life. We can choose every day to lift others up through the transference of love. And that is all often dressed up, in my case anyways, through kindness and compassion. That's all I have. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. If you do want to learn about the organizations and projects I am a part of, there is a list of the organizations: Achieves Career Loans Program, Saskabilities, Truly Alive Youth and Family Foundation, Indigenous Spirits. And if you want to learn about me and the work I do, and if you want to just appreciate this picture of Wrigley, you can check out my website, www.candicefox.com. I believe he makes an appearance on there as well. So, and also all my social media handles as well. All right, thank you, everyone.
Yeah, that was amazing. I really loved everything that you said, and so many things that you talked about really resonated with me. And one of the things I think about is, I was working in a school setting and there was 1,500 kids. So I really like to stand at the door when kids were coming in the morning. There's quite a few coming, and just saying hi and making eye contact. Because I think, maybe I might be the only time that somebody maybe says hi or makes eye contact, because kids can come in and get settled and really talk to nobody. So
Yeah.
I think that's so important, looking for ways to do that. So let's open it up for any questions. I think I might be having trouble with the chat myself. Every time I get a private message, then I can't seem to read out of there. So if there's anything, anybody have any questions or for Candace? Okay.
I think you're on mute if you're.
Thank you. So while we're waiting to see if there's actually any questions coming through, I'm going to put the survey in the chat window. If you do have the opportunity to fill out the survey, it would be great. Thank you.
While we're waiting, I do have a question though, and I was curious about, Candace, when you talked about, and I really love this idea as well, that trauma-informed training for staff. And so I'm curious about if you know of any organizations that do that, or where would people go if they're thinking, that's something I think would be really, really helpful for my organization. So do you have any?
Yeah, there is one, and I don't know the elongated, but it's NICAB, I believe. But honestly, if people Google search trauma-informed training, there are lots of organizations. It's very, I'd probably recommend making sure that those trainings are aligned with a health service or a reputable organization. There's also lots of freebies out there by mental health organizations specific for especially nonprofit groups and other businesses. So there's tons of resources. I would also recommend if anyone wants to take the free Alberta Indigenous Canada course, that's also something that I recommend to a lot of my clients, and certainly I have taken it given the work that I do and the people that I work with. So another free resource that I would highly, highly, highly recommend.
And is that the Coursera U of A, University of Alberta?
Yeah,
course?
it's through the University of Alberta, and it's completely free. So
okay, good, great. Okay, so I think that might be it for questions. So again, I want to thank Candace and Vicki so much for coming here today and being part of our speaker series. Coming up, the topic, I think you guys did such a great job about, talking about ways and ideas and strategies that, whether through business or personal, we can start to lift others up around us, and lots of really good tools. So I'm going to turn it over to Penny, and then she's going to do the closing here.
Okay, so thank you. We would like to thank our amazing speakers for their time and to support Will along with their experiences. So we also want to thank our moderator, Jody, and for Dana Crichton, who is from Will Foundation Corporate, and she has been our magic behind the scenes. So thank you very much. And with that, we would like to just remind you to do the survey if you do get a chance. And please have a happy, healthy, safe rest of your evening. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending.